Welcome. Tonight, security operatives raid a camp allegedly owned by IPOB and Eastern Security Network in Enugu, retrieve body of a missing policeman from the scene as police burst criminal syndicate in Yobe State. The senior staff and non-academic staff unions in the nation's public universities suspend their industrial action for 2 months from August the 24th. Following negotiations with the federal government. Minister of Education says 50 billion naira and allowances will be paid to the associations, including ASU. Former head of state Chief Olusegun Obasanjo refused report of his purported comments about Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu during the visit of the APC presidential candidate to his residence in Abeokuta, Ogun State. And fresh Ukrainian drone strike targets Russian Black Sea fleet in Crimea. Russian-appointed regional leaders say drone was shot down.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria's forex reserves rebound after 4 weeks of decline amid volatile oil market.
On sports news tonight, Arsenal continue their perfect start to the Premier League season with a comprehensive 3-0 win against Bournemouth.
We'll begin with security first in Enugu State, where the police have recovered the body of a policeman said to have been missing for some time now from a forest. This followed a raid carried out by security operatives at a camp allegedly belonging to IPOB ESN in Iboeze North local government area. In a similar raid in Yobe State, the police command has arrested a gang of suspected criminals said to have been terrorizing 5 local government areas. This came after a series of complaints from the residents and intelligence reports.
This is Agubeje Forest in Enugu Ezike, Igweze North local government area. The Enugu State Police Command carried out a tactical and intelligence-driven dusk-to-dawn raid at the IPOB ESN camp. The operation led to the discovery of a corpse of a male victim identified as Obasanjo Johnson, a police officer serving in Igweze North Police Division of the command, who'd gone missing. Also recovered at the camp are 12 firearms, including 1 AR-K2 assault rifle, pump-action guns, locally made Beretta-like pistols, and locally fabricated double-barreled guns, amongst others. From the southeast to the northeastern state of Yobe, where a gang of 6 persons who specialize in house burglaries have been arrested by the State Police Command.
This development comes as a result of series of complaints by communities that hoodlums attack their houses while asleep in the night and cut away with properties. Some houses, if they found it closed, maybe the occupants travel, they will enter and empty the entire house.
One of the suspects, Musa Abdullahi, who spoke to journalists, says he regretted his actions, saying he was caught in the act for the first time and asked the authorities to pardon them.
This is the first time where I stop someone property. Other people, they're supposed to be in safe. That is, even though hunger will kill you for this life, you're not supposed to touch anyone property, it's not belong to you. To do everything locally to help us to make our life change.
The police say they remain resolute in their efforts to enforce the law towards securing lives and property across the country.
Meanwhile, gunmen have killed a Yobe state-based Islamic scholar, Sheikh Goni Aisimi Gashua, at Jaji Manji, the headquarters of Karasuwa local government area in the state. The cleric was reportedly attacked while on a journey from Gashua to Kano and was said to have been trailed by the attackers in the bus to Jaji Manji, where he was killed, just a distance less than 30 kilometers from Gashua town. The police spokesperson in the state, DSP Dungus Abdul Karim, told Channels Television that the culprits have already been arrested with one AK-47 rifle and in the custody of the police for further investigations. It's the end of the road for 20-year-old suspected bandit Yusuf Monore following his arrest while in possession of 2 AK-47 rifles and 5 rounds of live ammunition, as well as handset in Giwa local government area of Kaduna State. In a statement, the spokesperson of the Kaduna State Police Command, DSP Mohammed Jalinge, explained that the bandit was arrested by police operatives of Operation Restore Peace at Galadimawa community. He also said that the suspect is currently undergoing thorough investigation, while operatives are still in the pursuit of his fleeing gang members. The State Commissioner of Police, Yakini Ayoko, while commending the officers who took part in the operation, gave the assurance of the deepening existing synergy and collaborative engagement among security forces in Kaduna State. Away from security now, workers in the nation's public tertiary education system may now prepare to return to work as the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Allied and Education Institutions have suspended their industrial action with effect from August the 24th. The suspension, which is for 2 months following a meeting between the Joint Action Committee of the unions and the Minister of Education, Mr. Adamu, in the nation's capital, Abuja, today. After the meeting, the Minister of Education told journalists that the federal government has committed 50 billion naira for the payment of earned allowances for members of SANU, NASU and ASU. This comes as the Academic Staff Union of Universities had resolved to continue its industrial action until all backlog of members' salaries are paid.
The meeting between the leadership of the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, the Non-Academic Staff Union of Universities, NASU, and the Minister of Education in Abuja climaxes the series of negotiations to end the strike embarked upon by the unions since March 27 this year.
On the poor funding of state institutions.
The meeting is essentially to dot the I's and cross the T's as both parties reach an agreement leading to the suspension of the 5-month-old industrial action.
We have taken several days to discuss this issue with the Joint Action Committee of NASU and SANU, and we have finally come to an agreement that they are going to withdraw and call off their strike because their demands have been met by government. Government has committed a total of 50 billion naira for the payment of unacademic allowances and unallowances. And I think this is part of what they are demanding.
We have decided that this strike of the JAG of SANU and NASU will be suspended with effect from Wednesday, 24th of August, 2022.
The Education Minister also clarifies that the progress made so far extends to the university lecturers who have also been on strike since February this year.
We started this negotiation together because I was seeing ASU, I was seeing NASU and SANU. And something must start, and this is just the beginning. I believe they will also be calling off their own when they believe government has substantially addressed their grievances.
Members of SANU and NASU embarked on strike in March this year with 8 demands, which included the renegotiation of the 2009 agreement with the federal government, the payment of all earned allowances, as well as the payment of arrears of the national minimum wage.
Having reviewed the situation and also having listened to the pleas of Nigerians, parents in particular and students, And out of our patriotism, and having been satisfied that substantially more than 80% of what we have requested have timelines of not more than 2 months, we feel that it is only proper at this point to yield to the to the callings of Nigerians, and that our members should be assured that whatever decisions we have taken today to suspend this strike, effective on Wednesday 24th, is in the best interest of all of us.
The strike embarked upon by members of the academic and non-academic staff unions of universities has grounded all activities in public universities in Nigeria for the past 6 months. But with the suspension of this action by SANU and NASU, and the promises to end the ASU strike, the campuses may soon come alive again.
Amid efforts among key players of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) to resolve the crisis rocking the party, a former governor of Plateau State, Senator John Ajang, has called on the party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, to close rank with all members of the party. He was speaking against the backdrop of the rift between Alhaji Atiku and the River State Governor Nyesom Wike in the aftermath of the party's primary and the choice of a running mate for the PDP flag bearer. Senator Jang, who was a special guest at the flag-off of road constructions in Port Harcourt, River State, said this must be done to guarantee the victory of the party in next year's election.
You have supported everything that has made PDP what it is today. But I want to plead with you. Don't give up. God has something for you. I want to call off our presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, to close ranks with all members, particularly members of your group, of which I'm proudly one. Doing this will guarantee victory in 2023 general elections. These men and women, as I've said, worked hard to build this party to what it is. And they cannot just be wished away overnight. We need to come together, settle our differences by recognizing that you need each and every one of us for you to win the general election.
Meanwhile, Governor Nyesom Wike has asked residents to be careful of politicians who do not worry about their welfare.
Here in this state, we are concerned about providing the dividends of democracy. We are not concerned about knowing people since 1993. We don't want to know people since 1993. We want to know our people and provide what our people needs. Like I tell anybody who cares, now that he's from this community, he can tell his community people, I know the governor. They will say, okay, if you know the governor, what have you brought? He can say, I have brought internal roads to Obasanjo local government. That is knowing the governor. If you know Mr. President or Mr. Vice President, then you can't bring something to your community. You are knowing him is in vain, it's useless. Instead of me to know a president, and then there's nothing to attract to my local government, to my state, then my knowing president is worthless. You know somebody to utilize that relationship for the benefit of your people. That's what they call having a relationship with somebody in authority and be close to people in authority. If your closeness to people in authority is only how you can get oil block and sell, then that is selfish for you. That's selfish. It's not for the interest of your people.
And talking about uniting PDP members, a political support group, Articulated Global Movement, is pledging to ensure the party speaks with one voice ahead of 2023. The group is also vowing to galvanize millions of votes for the presidential candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. The group's national leader, Mariam Atiku Abubakar, and the PDP Cross River State deputy governorship candidate, Emana Ambrose Amawe, made the promise in Abuja at the inauguration of the Articulated Global Movement National Executive Committee. In part two, after the break, former head of state, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, refused reports of his purported comments about Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu during his recent visit to his presidential residence in Abeokuta, Ogun State. That's in a moment. Join us again. Joined us. You're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Security operatives raid a camp allegedly owned by IPOB and Eastern Security Network in Enugu, retrieve body of a missing policeman from the scene as police burst criminal syndicate in Yobe State. The senior staff and non-academic staff unions in the nation's public universities suspend their industrial action for 2 months from August the 24th. Minister of Education says 50 billion naira earned allowances will be paid to associations, including ASU. Former head of state, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, refutes report of his purported comments about Asiwaju Bola Tinubu during the recent visit of the APC presidential candidate to his residence in Abeokuta, Ogun State. And fresh Ukrainian drone strikes targets Russian Black Sea Fleet in Crimea. Russia-appointed regional leaders say drone was shot down. A political support group, Articulated Global Movement, is pledging to ensure the party, that's the People's Democratic Party, speaks with one voice ahead of the 2023 general elections. The group is also vowing to galvanize millions of votes for the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar.
Everyone here knows this election is our chance to restore hope to millions of Nigerians who crave a better life. So as we gather here today to reflect on the theme of this event, we should all remember that from the lowest office to the highest, with the new Electoral Act, we're connected in victory and defeat. As I said earlier, we must go back to our units and words and ensure that we come together, pull resources together, and ensure that PDP is successful at all levels.
AGM has already put up billboards, and those billboards across the federation are sponsored by the aspirants and candidates, it's self-funded. And it's going to be the same way, reaching out, ensuring the advancement of women, causes that foster development, economic development, social development. That's what Articulated Global Movement is all about. That's why the selection process is extremely thorough. What message do you want to pass across as an individual? Then how do we collapse our structures to work to ensure that we have the Nigeria of our dreams?
Meanwhile, the coalition of all support groups for the presidential candidate of the ruling APC says only their candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is ready for business in the run-up to the general elections next year. For the group, while the APC and its candidates are going round mobilizing grassroots groups across the country, the opposition is busy sponsoring campaigns against the Muslim ticket. The Director General of the group stated this in Abuja at a meeting to fine-tune their strategies ahead of the flag-off of the campaigns next month.
When we are talking about good governance did not depend on Muslim or Christian. Good governance depends on your ability, your capability. The Alhaji married to a pastor, they are dying and whining together. The strategy that we are using, being a support group who have been doing it, not this year, not last year, since 2015, to make sure the grassroots who has been promoting the vision for better Nigeria, and the strategy that we still put in place to make sure that we achieve this is to mobilize from grassroots, door to door, market to market, house to house, to state, to higher level, and including federation. Not only in the federation. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will not govern Nigeria alone. He will be the best president ever in Africa.
Staying with politics, for political economist Professor Pat Utomi, it's time for Nigerians to do away with the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and the All Progressives Congress (APC) if the country must move forward. According to him, the focus should be on parties with clear-cut strategies on how to touch the lives of the people positively. Professor Utomi made this comment at the Creda People's Association General Assembly, a forum of South-South people in Lagos.
Nigerians should ignore political parties and think who are on top of the issues, who have ideas that touch the lives of people in a more direct sense, who can stem the tide. I know that all of you know that my views are very well known. I was there the day the PDP was being founded. I was there the day the APC was being founded. In my personal view, they have both failed the Nigerian people. The time has come for the Nigerian people to find new ways, away from the politics of, what can we share? It's what can we share that has brought Nigeria down. What we must do is ask Nigerian people, where does it hurt? Let's find out from the people what's hurting, where it's hurting, and how they think it can be fixed.
Days after the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, visited former President Olusegun Obasanjo in his Abeokuta residence, the former president has expressed dissatisfaction with what he calls the unauthorized reports of the discussion and the statements credited to him. In a statement by his special assistant on media, Kehinde Akinyemi, Chief Obasanjo said the statements coming from those claiming to be supporters of Mr. Tinubu are unhelpful. The statement reads in part, those claiming to be insiders at the meeting issuing statements on the discussion and those crediting to me statements I had not made are enemies of the visitor and are not doing the visit any good. According to him, the discussion during the visit was more brotherly than political, adding that it was at the request of Chief Tinubu that he agreed to no statement from his or either side. Reprieve seems to have come for 52 television and radio stations whose broadcast licenses were revoked by the National Broadcasting Commission on Friday for failing to renew their licenses. In the statement, the NBC explains that the enforcement of the order has been shifted till August the 23rd to enable the affected stations to pay all their outstanding fees to the Commission, failing which they will be shut down by 12 a.m. on August the 24th. The NBC Director General Balarabe Ilela explains that the decision followed appeals by affected stations, relevant stakeholders and public-spirited individuals. The Commission had directed stations belonging to Silverbird, AIT and 50 others to be shut down by security agencies within 24 hours, triggering almost instant reactions from the broadcasting organizations of Nigeria, as well as the Nigeria Union of Journalists, NUJ, which described the revocation order as hasty. More shanties and illegal structures have been demolished as officials of the Federal Capital Territory Administration continue its drive to restore order in parts of the nation's capital, Abuja. The officials say the exercise is part of efforts to clear the city of security threats, as many criminals seek refuge in shanties. Abuja has recently witnessed a new wave of insecurity with attacks on military personnel and threats to residents.
A joint task force of the Federal Capital Territory Administration moved into this area in Gadua village in the Abuja Municipal Area Council, demolishing every illegal structure in sight. Confusion and tears as some residents make frantic efforts to salvage some of their belongings before the buildings crumble under the heavy weight of the bulldozer. Officials say the exercise, which took place in the three villages of Gadua, Baduma and Durumi Phase 3, is part of efforts by the Federal Capital Territory Administration to address insecurity in the nation's capital.
Today we had two operations. The one at Gadua, stretching from the Gadua junction down to the village community, and the one here at Kaswandere in Asukuru at the entry point into Paduma village. We have seen it really very worrisome. The one here, we have gotten too much complaint that criminals here have really gathered here and they've been attacking, let me not say VIPs, other Nigerians who are living here, both the VIPs, even the poor among themselves, even the indigenous people have complained that they have been robbed by criminals at Kaswan Adere here. They have had a series of complaints. So today we come in here to clear this one. We're clearing as well the criminal elements around the Gadua area, stretching from Gadua Owando down to Gadua village around the NCDC lab.
However, some of the residents say they were not given any prior notice before the demolition is carried out.
To be sincere, you can ask the villagers. There is no day and no how they give 2 more notice, and we are living here for more than 20 years that we don't know. One day they just came in and started marking few places, and okay, after marking, nobody come again. Nobody come and ask, okay, you people who are giving 2 months, 1 month, back away. Nobody said that.
Demolition of shanties and illegal structures in Abuja is not new for many residents. It's a routine exercise that the FCT administration carries out to maintain the city's original master plan. However, the recent increase in security threats have prompted the increased demolition of the shanties around the city.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, had on June the 29th gave a directive to house owners to desist from renting their properties to internet fraudsters, popularly known as Yahoo boys. The commission said it was simply enforcing the provision of Section 3 of the Advance Fee Fraud and Other Fraud-Related Offences Act of 2006. In this special report, our correspondent, Dele Omoyeni, captures reactions of Nigerians to this development.
The directive by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to homeowners not to rent their properties to internet fraudsters is eliciting mixed reactions. The main concern in executing the directive is how much background checks can the homeowners carry out on their prospective tenants.
Even the EFCC that is saying that when they arrest somebody, they still give the person shelter. Even when they convict somebody and they send the person to jail, they still give the person shelter. So the issue here is that lawyers always do their due diligence before they allow anybody to enter the property of their client. In the properties I manage, I would want the person to be paying rent regularly, not to stress me to take the person to court or not. So I do my due diligence, one, to know whether you are capable of paying what the rent is going for. Because you will put me into trouble and wasting my unnecessary time. But the issue of crime The lawyers do not have the right to investigate.
In giving the directive, the Commission explains that it's simply enforcing the provisions of Section 3 of the Advanced Fee Fraud and Other Fraud-Related Offences Act of 2006, which stipulates that a person who being the occupier or is concerned in the management of any premises causes or knowingly permits the premises to be used for any purposes which constitutes an offence under this act is guilty of an offence and liable on conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 5 years without an option of fine. While some consider this a joke, others agree, albeit with a caution to the Commission.
When you talk about the fact that it can be criminalized, I am not sure about that, and that's not correct. Because the position of the law is that the relationship between landlords and tenants is purely contractual. And so when you have a contractual transaction, the landlord don't have duty to know exactly if a person is a fraudster, because the landlord is not a police officer and the landlord cannot investigate crime. And by the way, you can't call anyone a fraudster until the person has been convicted by a court of law. So the idea and the insinuation that anyone who gives his property to a suspected criminal or fraudster will be jailed or be criminalized cannot stand.
The highest you can do most of the time is that when you are in need of a house, you go there. Even if the house, for your identity card, this identity card can be forged. So if this identity card is forged, or you find that you believe that this person is one, the person turned out to be Yahoo, turned out to be anything using that place, so it becomes a problem. Problem in the sense that the enforcement will be a problem, because all I need to show or to prove is the fact that I did not knowingly give out these premises or property to somebody who indulges in fraud.
Attempts to get the Commission to explain how they plan to enforce these provisions proved abortive, as the spokesperson of the EFCC, Mr. Wilson Owajarin, did not respond to our calls. Daily Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
Over 300 ex-agitators from the Niger Delta region trained in 11 technical and vocational skills under the Presidential Amnesty program have graduated in Ondo State. The interim administrator of the program notes that the graduates have been equipped with the necessary skills they need to make a living. The Ondo State Governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, is represented by his deputy, who notes that the initiative in training the ex-agitators in various skills will address the scarcity of technical manpower in the oil and gas industry.
I believe that the 349 successful candidates seated in this arena can now boast to be skilled and licensed in these various skills. The job placement unit has started making efforts with other companies that require your skill. Some of you will probably end up in the Train 7, the Brass Fertilizer Company, and so on.
The depth or scarcity of technical manpower in the oil and gas and other relevant sectors in the value chain has been one of the critical low points in our quest for a lasting solution to the many problems that plague the sector, our community, our nation before now. It becomes very heartwarming, therefore, to find that the Amnesty program, since coming on stream, has taken the initiatives for a systemic restoration of peace in the Niger Delta through various scholarships into different institutions of learning, with the skill acquisition and technical manpower provision for the industry, and thereby creating means of livelihood for our people.
The federal government says it has made available over 5,000 assorted grains worth 100 million naira for distribution to the poor and vulnerable communities in Adamawa State. This was made known by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Mohammed Bello, at the handing over ceremony in Yola, the state capital. According to the minister, the intervention is to cushion the effect of food shortage usually experienced at the middle of the farming season in the country.
The problem of food shortage, especially during the farming season, has been of great concern to the people, especially among the poor and vulnerable who depend on subsistence farming for their livelihood. During the wet season, food scarcity is always witnessed as farmers are in their farms and the new crops have not started getting to the market. It's for this reason that the federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, is intervening by providing these bags of assorted grain. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT Mohammed Bello, while presenting the items to officials of the APC in the state, insists that the items must reach the poor and vulnerable communities.
The total grains are in 4 different categories. We have 3,650 kg bags of maize, 1,850 kg bags of sorghum, and then we have 1,200 bags of millet, including 1,200 bags of gari. And I hope that our leaders here, as was rightly mentioned by our leader, the deputy party chairman, that those entrusted with the responsibility to distribute these items will do it so that the vulnerable people within our communities will be able to get this, so that at least it will provide some relief to them before, God willing, the new crops starts to come out of our farms.
Just as the vice chairman of the APC Adamawa State chapter appreciates the federal government for their assistance.
Minister took time to arrange, to see his people and to help them with the materials. We are thanking you.
Some, however, are of the opinion that the distribution of grain should not be a party affair, but should cut across the political divides in the state.
The Edo State government says it has awarded contracts for over 860 kilometers of road across the state so far, adding that the plan is to address the road infrastructure deficit. The State Commissioner for Roads and Bridges, Mr. Newton Okoje, made this known to journalists in Benin City, the state capital, where he appealed to residents to be patient while government repairs the infrastructure challenges.
It's a case of one protest too many. Here, angry youth decry the poor state of the Benin-Sapele Road, a stretch of road owned by the federal government. Another is for the Uwelu-Wasota Road, also in Benin City, the Edo State capital. Even as the protesters have since left the roads, the Edo State Ministry of Road and Bridges deems it necessary to address this thorny issue.
Between 2016 and now, a total length of 860 kilometers of roads have been awarded. Bids for an additional length of 26.3 kilometers was opened 2 weeks ago.
According to the state government, contracts have been awarded. The challenges being faced were unforeseen.
Barely 1.5 years ago, the entire world was at a standstill because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Nobody could work, and no government could realize any revenue.
The Ministry of Environment is one of the stakeholders. Mr. Jonathan Lawani underlines poor waste management as a major problem.
Each time you take your refuse from your houses and you dump them on our roadside, you are calling on erosion. Because once there is a rainfall and your refuse find their way to the existing drainage system, you have called on erosion. Because you block those drainage systems that would have ordinarily discharged water, and once the water cannot find a free flow system, they find their way to the roads.
The shutdown of the Benin-Sapele Road by protesters brought untold hardship to users of the road, with questions asked of the federal government's ability to manage its roads.
If you look at Owe Junction and Sapele, from Benin bypass, the ring road to Lobo, it has been commissioned for permanent work, which we are going to raise the road above the ground level where it is now,
And once that is done, all these challenges that we are having yearly will be reduced.
While these explanations might be in order, residents want to see the work in progress. The Edo State government and the federal government would have to fulfill their obligations of providing good roads.
Time to find out what's happening in the world of business with Teniola Shobowali.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. Welcome to Business News. After 4 consecutive weeks of decline, Nigeria's FX reserves recorded a moderate rebound as it increased by $22.35 million week on week to $38.91 billion as at August the 17th. The rise in the country's external buffer, which comes amid fluctuations in oil prices on the international market, and Nigeria's low oil production levels, is largely attributed to inflow of foreign exchange. Well, before now, Nigeria's external reserves fell to $38.88 billion due to the Central Bank of Nigeria's continued intervention in the forex market as it supplied more dollars in order to stabilize the naira. The external reserves had been on a downward path since July 18 after enjoying an upward trajectory that saw it rise by $976 million from $38.42 billion as at June the 6th to $39.44 billion. And trading activity at the FMDQ exchange was slightly mixed this week. However, the total turnover of transactions carried out at the FX spot, forwards and futures markets fell by 36.58% to $489.68 million as at August the 19th. A further analysis of the trading results shows that total value of transactions at the FX spot market, that's the I&E window, rose slightly by 8.49% to $388.68 million, while the FX derivatives market turnover fell by 75.6% to $101 million. Also, the naira depreciated by 0.27% to 427 naira 94 kobo against the dollar at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange window of the forex market, in contrast to 426 naira 79 kobo recorded last week. Well, back home at the domestic equities market, bearish sentiments persist for a second consecutive week as the all-share index dipped by 0.59% week on week to close at 49,370.62 points. Particularly, sell-offs in Okumo Oil, Presco, Access Holdings and Lafarge led the weekly loss. Consequently, the month-to-date and year-to-date returns settled at minus 2.0% and plus 15.6% respectively. Likewise, activity levels mirrored the overall negative market performance as trade in volume and value declined by 45.5% and 9.7% week on week respectively. Sectoral performance was slightly mixed as the banking and industrial goods indexes advanced, while the consumer goods, insurance and oil and gas indexes declined. Prestige Assurance PLC topped the gainers chart for the week, while Japan Gold led the decliners. The trio of FBN Holdings, E-Transact International and UBA contributed 39.3% and 20.61% to the total volume and value traded in the week. And similarly, the NASD OTC Securities Exchange Index closed the week negative. The NASD Securities Index fell by more than 1%. The exchange lost about 1 billion naira in value. However, volume and value rose sharply. Volume traded stood at 13.57 million units, while value traded for the week rose to 3.16 billion naira. NIPCO PLC was the only advancer this week, while Central Securities Clearance System led a pack of 3 other sore losers. Meanwhile, VFD Group PLC and NIPCO PLC were among top 5 stocks traded by volume for the week. And workers at the UK's biggest container port are set to launch an 8-day strike on Sunday in a dispute over pay. Around 1,900 members of Unite at Felixstowe will walk out in the first strike to hit the port since 1989, the latest outbreak of industrial action to hit a growing number of sectors of the economy. The union says the stoppage will have a big impact on the port, which handles around 4 million containers a year from 2,000 ships. And that's business news tonight. I'm Teniola Shobowale. It's back to Melinda for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Teniola. Following criticisms by the Nigerian Governors Forum on the claims by the Minister of Justice that the Nigeria Governors Forum had signed an indemnity conceding that payments be made to the consultants of the Paris Club refund, the lead consultant in the case, Senator Ned Nwoko, has faulted the position of the NGF, describing it as a misrepresentation of facts. Addressing journalists in Abuja today, the former member of the House of Representatives explained that the governors had indeed signed an indemnity under the last chairman of the forum. He, however, maintains that the money being owed the solicitors is $68 million and not $418 million, as being stated.
I was engaged directly by local governments. I was also engaged directly by the state governments. It was much later that NGF wrote to us that we should also carry on with a class action on behalf of all the states. States were to be refunded $10 billion. Local governments were to be refunded $3.1 billion. The bottom line is that these refunds were eventually made in full to both the states and local governments. The issues has been, what about my fees? During the meeting with the Yari, he confronted me about my fees. But what he told me was shocking. He told me that he couldn't pay me, that money was diverted because it was needed for elections in Bauchi, Ekiti, and Ondo elections. The same fire me. I'm sure you're all aware of what happened, that EFCC became involved, and it was established that some of the money found their ways to some members of, or some leadership of National Assembly. EFCC was able to clamp down and recover some of this money funneled away by NGF. Most of these frauds are still subject of investigations, as well as civil and criminal litigations. In fact, all the governors wrote the letter. So you ask yourself, so why are they fighting against payment of those fees? If they had all written, authorizing deductions of 5% of whatever refunds was coming to them. There's no state that didn't get at least about 20 billion naira of refunds, including the state. None.
So many exciting things happening in the world of sports. Victor Matthias has the details.
Indeed, Melinda, thank you for joining us on Sports News. Now, Kamaru Usman will look to enter UFC record books when he returns to the octagon against Leon Edwards in the early hours of Sunday morning. Victory in the main event of UFC 278 at the Vivint Arena in Utah will see Usman tie Anderson Silva's UFC record streak of 16 straight wins. Although he beat Edwards via unanimous decision in their first fight in 2015, the 35-year-old says he is not underestimating his British rival and wants to even defeat him more convincingly this time around. The Nigerian Nightmare has been UFC welterweight champion since his win over Tyron Woodley at UFC 235 in March 2019. He has 5 successful title defenses since then. And Esther Onyenezide is very confident the Falconets will beat the Netherlands in their quarterfinal clash at the Under-20 Women's World Cup in Costa Rica. Nigeria finished top of Group C with 9 points from 3 games and will face Group D runners-up on Sunday for a place in the semi-finals.
We are going to bring out our best, double our efforts against Netherlands. We doubled our efforts against France and Korea, but we are going to double it, because this is a stage we have to execute everything we have been learning. So the next stage is semi-final, so we are not hurried to leave this tournament for now. I am still saying, and I'm repeating it, we are going to bring them down.
And to the Premier League, Arsenal have maintained their perfect start to the season by trashing Bournemouth 3-0 for their 3rd straight win to go top of the table. Now elsewhere, Harry Kane scored his 250th goal for Tottenham as Antonio Conte's team beat Wolverhampton Wanderers 1-0. Wilfred Zaha bagged the brace to lead Crystal Palace to a 3-1 win over Aston Villa. Everton and Nottingham Forest battled to a 1-1 draw. Fulham beat Brentford 3-2 in the West London derby, while Southampton got their first 3 points of the season with a 2-1 win at Leicester City. Meanwhile, Jurgen Klopp is not underestimating Manchester United despite their winless start to the season as Liverpool go to Old Trafford on Monday in search of their own first win of the campaign. Liverpool have pumped in 13 goals in their last 3 league meetings with United, but Klopp says they cannot dwell on those results heading into the contest. The Reds drawn their opening 2 games of the season, while United have lost all of theirs.
When we had the 2 results last year, I knew already in that moment they will not help for next year. So that's always like this, and I couldn't be less interested in the results from last year. There were different games, different situations, so it just helps United probably a little bit to be even more motivated. Of course it does. I would prefer to play them after they won 5-0, definitely. That's how it is, but it's not dreamland. So we have to take it like it is. And we drew 2 games, so is it better to play us?
Well, many games to look forward to tomorrow as well as Monday. But Melinda, my own guess, I would keep that to my mind. What about you?
I guess I'll keep that to my chest as well, Victor. Thank you so much for that. On the international scene, security officials say 12 people have been killed after Al-Shabaab militants stormed a hotel in the Somali capital, Mogadishu, on Friday night. Continued gunfire and explosions were reported earlier today as security operatives battled gunmen still inside, holding hostages. Dozens of people have been gathering outside the hotel to discover the fate of their loved ones caught in the crisis. Police say the attackers detonated 2 explosives outside before entering the building and opening fire. A special police unit is said to have rescued dozens of guests and staff from the Hotel Hayat, which is a regular for government officials. The attack comes as government forces have stepped up operations against Al-Shabaab, as Somalia's president has promised to eliminate the armed group. After a year-long family feud, Misulu Zulu Kwazeletini has been crowned Zulu king in a traditional ceremony in South Africa. The 48-year-old is the son of the previous monarch, but some royals had argued that he was not the rightful heir and that the late king's will was in fact forged. Thousands of people gathered at the Zulu Royal Palace in South Africa for the ceremony. The throne has no formal political power, but a fifth of South Africa's population is Zulu, and its monarchy remains hugely influential with a yearly taxpayer-funded budget of more than $4.9 million. Next month, the king is to be hosted by the government for a state ceremony. Russian forces in Crimea have been targeted by a fresh drone strike. According to the Russian-appointed regional leader, a Ukrainian drone targeting Russia's Black Sea fleet in the city of Sevastopol was shot down. It follows a string of attacks on Russian forces and installations in the annexed peninsula this month. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called on the world to help Russia export the country's food and fertilizer. The UN chief says transporting Russian and Ukrainian food and fertilizer is crucial to help the nation with acute shortages and hunger. At least 32 people have been killed in two separate events in Turkey when vehicles crashed into first responders following earlier accidents. A bus hit the scene of a road crash near Gaziantep this morning, killing 16 people and injuring 21. The dead include firefighters, rescuers, and a team of journalists who had been sent to the site where a vehicle had left the road. Hours later, a truck hit a crowd of people 250 kilometers away from Madrid, also killing 16 people and reportedly hitting emergency workers. There have been no reports of a connection between the incidents. According to officials, 29 people were injured in the second crash, 8 of them seriously. And the main news again. Security operatives retrieved the body of a missing policeman after raiding a camp allegedly owned by IPOB, an Eastern Security Network in Enugu State. That's the news at 10 tonight. I'm Melinda Akinlami.